Today's Wednesday, the 24th, despite what Ryan was trying to get
What
me to
month,
say.
Krista?
It's July.
2019.
What about people who are watching this in the future?
Because that happens a lot.
I did actually get a comment on a video from like 2 years ago, like a news video where we were like make that joke, and they're like, "I'm watching it 2 years later." ... And it's like, oh my goodness.
Wow.
What's
We get so many comments I usually don't notice
Are
if
you
one slips in
bedridden?
from a past one. Yeah.
It is hot. And
You're
we've had to
right.
turn off one of the air conditioners because it makes horrible noises that you all complain about. And today is not as hot as yesterday. In the eastern U.S., we are baking. And this is where we get 500 comments like, you think you're hot. Here in Australia, it's 10,000 degrees.
Not right now. It'd be winter there, right?
It's so hot, airplanes can't generate lift.
But being hot makes you uncomfortable. You know, it slows down everything. I saw that, I think in Philadelphia, was like, please don't commit crimes this weekend. Because
No one wants to
we
deal with your
really don't
crap.
want to deal with that. But it has an unexpected consequence for early adopters as well.
We tested 5G across America. It's crazy fast and also a hot mess. So, yeah, it turns out that your phones get insanely hot and then they throttle and then they don't work. And that's also really hard on the battery to get hot. So, yeah. People demonstrating 5G have taken to using like ice packs and like cooling packs
Whoa.
to be like, look, your phone is working correctly, but it's not.
Why is it so wet? Just ignore the ice pack on the bottom. It's
No,
fine.
it will kick down to 4G. It doesn't stop working. It just kicks down to 4G. Most carriers will show you that with the icon. You know who won't show you that?
AT&T.
AT&T keeps showing you 5G when it kicks down to 4G because AT&T.
Because
It's a feature.
they're dirty, dirty liars.
They are dirty liars.
And other things beside.
You'd think the FTC would do something about that.
Oh, it's not loading.
struggling.
It's Washington Post. It probably won't even load anyway.
That's Windows Report, Krista. Jeez.
Oh, I can't read. I just saw the W on the front.
Our next story is about Microsoft's financials. Microsoft's
Which-
financials, the 4G reporting. It's like their 4G
Q4.
Q4 earnings was off the charts, and so people are trying to figure out why. Their stock price went up like a third.
Here's a blank page to illustrate that.
Nice cursor.
I don't know why it's doing this.
Good job, Windows Report.
Oh.
Page unresponsive.
Guess we can just exit that page.
Wah, wah.
It's not exiting.
Anyway.
It's not exiting.
There's a link in the description.
Maybe
one
you could,
tabs.
You could lock up your own browser. So, yeah, they killed it this quarter. Everything went up except gaming. Windows gaming didn't go up.
They also were spending more money on R&D quarter over quarter. So, and more R&D, not more R&D as a percent of the revenue, but more R&D overall. And that's really paid off. A lot of automation around Azure and that kind of thing. That's really, really helping them. Intel could take note. It's like, look, your R&D, you're spending enough on R&D, you're going to get this kind of market growth because Intel's spending on R&D hasn't really gone up percentage-wise.
But see, I think sadly,
But who has the best CPU?
a big part of it is software as a service.
Yeah.
That's how they're clawing back all that money.
Yeah.
And that's bad news for the consumer, though.
It's bad news for the consumer and it's good news for the consumer because the software has gotten so sophisticated that there's a talent shortage. And so, like, while it's bad that you used to be able to pay for software that you now have to subscribe to, Microsoft could charge less and make more. And in some areas, they are kind of charging less and making more because there just aren't people smart enough smart people to work on it. And the service thing means that they can run stuff in the cloud their way correctly, and that's what they're doing.
Microsoft did really well, but not all of the tech companies did really well. One of the most important FANGs had a bit of a bad earnings call.
Netflix stock tumbles after U.S. subscribers drop for the first time in years. So, yeah, Netflix is who we're talking about here. And it kind of makes sense because
They raised their prices.
they raised their prices and a lot of the investors are worried about like Disney and, Disney's got Hulu and now they've got their own like Disney Kids streaming service. So
No, it's not just going to be for kids.
Yeah,
Disney
it's
Plus
like
is gonna
everything. The whole vault.
be a Netflix killer.
Well, yes, but their more adult content is probably also going to go to Hulu. So
No, Hulu's going to be
it's just going
the
to get all merged
commercialized
together.
version. Disney Plus is going to be all that Marvel stuff, all of the Fox
Star
stuff.
Wars now.
Yeah, Disney Plus is going to be a juggernaut. Also,
They'll probably still display ads on it though.
HBO Plus is all they've announced their stuff last week.
Yeah.
It wasn't as impressive as Disney Plus, but it does further pull away from what was the Friends? Netflix is losing Friends.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's like the last like syndicated big television show that I think they had, because they got rid of 30 Rock and they got rid of, I think, do they still have The Office? I don't think they have The Office anymore.
I don't know, but it's dark times. I wish I was one of those numbers who canceled. I just keep forgetting.
I canceled mine like a year ago. It was worth it. Not worth keeping.
You know, I made a terrible mistake here because there's a story about Netflix India somewhere further on in the news.
Whoops.
Just remember this moment when we get there. But first, let's talk about Elon Musk. You know, I think Tesla had some good financials.
They did
this quarter. The demand was way more than anybody expected.
Yeah. There was a chart that came out of like all the different car companies and how many vehicles they sold, and it was almost 100,000 vehicles for Tesla. I don't think it was quarterly. I think it was just year to date. But they were doing better than a lot of other big names in the auto industry.
Which surprised a lot of people because they thought this was going to be the quarter where they kind of shit the bed. But this story is not about that. This story is about yet another of Musk's dalliances outside of Tesla, which a lot of people say, hey, bro, maybe focus on one thing. But he refuses to.
No.
And this one is pretty amazing.
Elon Musk unveils Neuralink's plans for brain-reading threads and a robot to insert them.
The highlight of this whole story is one line where they talk about like the president of this particular company talking. He's like, I'm not really sure this is a good idea, but we need talent, so please send us your resume.
Musk made the statement that this wasn't just about hype, it was about hype. But he claims the reason they announced this, you can't get this yet, obviously. I mean, there's nowhere near a consumer product here. But he says he's trying to troll for talent. Like, he wants this to get people excited, so they'll come and work for Neuralink.
They want a Ray Kurzweil of implantable neural things.
They have some nice pictures here. So that like little wafer is going to be, I think that's the size of it right now, but they're looking to miniaturize it much further than that. And then they've got
the USB-C mouse in here.
There he is. Oh.
Oh no! Did it close? It might have closed.
Can we just quietly ignore that? Yep.
We're just gonna pretend that our browser's not shitting the bed.
It's showing up in the. No, it's not.
Good.
No, it's not. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Here's the mouse.
Look at
It's
it.
got the wafer. It's USB-C. Do you think they use an extension cable, or they just plug him directly into the machine and let him dangle there?
I'm thinking about those USB chip killer things. Like I mean, isn't that wasn't this from Ghost in the Shell? I'm pretty sure I saw this in Ghost in the Shell.
So, well, they've got that.
I was kind of thinking the Matrix too.
They've got that USB drive that'll charge up.
Yeah.
And then, like, what if you plugged into that little guy?
Pretty sure that was exactly the thing that was in.
But he doesn't generate power.
Yeah.
So he'd probably be okay. Here we've got the inserter robot. And these things are, they're like a fifth the size of human hair. And it can somehow avoid blood vessels as it's tunneling.
Wow.
Also, they don't have this technology yet. They want to bore through your skull with lasers.
Do you think like they're sitting in the meeting and they're like, we think we could just use standard drill for this? And Elon Musk was like, I want lasers. And they're like, well, I mean, the drill works fine and we can sterilize it and stuff. He's like, lasers.
Well, I don't think you can make a drill 1/5 the size of
No.
a human hair.
No.
So it makes sense. But yeah, they have so far, they had a guy who had no motor function at all, and he was able to play Pong with his mind with this kind of setup. Pretty cool.
Can't wait till they start stealing your thoughts out of it.
That's the thing he brought up. The biggest issue right now is bandwidth, because the data that comes in from the human brain is completely overwhelming any kind of cabling that we have. Like, how do you move that kind of data?
A lot of optics.
Here it was, not even that far away. Actually, it looks like I meant to put these together and screwed up the sort somehow.
Netflix is going to roll out a lower price subscription plan in India because India is the new frontier of developing economies, and they can't afford Netflix. But the infrastructure cost in India is also not as high as it is in developed countries. So if Netflix locates the data close to the population that really wants it, they can still make money.
Now they pointed out the pricing is just crazy here. If you want a 480p mobile only streaming plan in India, it's $4 a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
The full, like the nice non-ad plan, $14 a year. So
They're willing to spend some money to get some nascent markets, huh?
well, it's not so much that; it's that the average salary is something like $2,000 a year over there. So that $4 is a non-trivial percentage if you think about it. It also goes to show you that Netflix can make money not charging that much.
Oh no!
We noticed you're blocking ads.
No!
The Washington
noticed.
Post.
We have to stop including stories from them because they never work.
Stupid
Oh yeah, I
business.
remember this story now. This is about Uber.
Yeah.
So Uber had a little bit of a hiccup, and the weird thing about this, in my opinion, is that they didn't just immediately erase all these. They let them go through.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, a lot of people don't have this kind of money in the bank.
Uber has charged passengers 100 times their ride price, resulting in crosstown fares in the thousands of dollars. It was supposed to be $13.08. It was $1,308.
Oh,
One woman they pointed out had like a $19,000 ride, which, that's yeah.
They should probably go in and fix all those proactively, and also apologize, and
Is there
also
gonna-
give you bank fees for overdraft.
Yeah,
or whatever.
overdraft is going to eat you up there. But they said, don't worry about it, we're going to fix it. But they didn't say when they were going to fix it. So,
well, those
We'll
people
get
don't
to
need
it.
their money.
what if you don't? If you pay $10,000 out of a bank account, you don't have money to pay your rent. Then what?
Listen, we needed that 19 grand to do a leveraged buy.
Buy back stock for that.
You'll get it back when you get it back.
Huawei has been working on their own OS ever since Trump and his tantrum took away Android for them. Now, he's since given Android back as the magnanimous God that he is. But if you're Huawei, you got to be a little worried, right? And you still got to be working on it. Well, they've got this Hongmeng, but they're saying that's not what that is.
Huawei says the Hongmeng OS is not designed as an Android replacement. Apparently, it's not even really designed for phones. So what were they working on for Hongmeng? And this is what they were going to repurpose for their phones, at least until the trade ban was lifted.
If I was them, I'd keep going because you never know.
Yeah, like any moment, especially with Trump as president, you have that constant threat of a tantrum.
Well,
Like,
with
you're wearing blue today.
with
Tariff.
Trump as president and the possible hot war with China kicking off.
Well, we've got supersonic subs. Oh, wait, they've got supersonic subs.
I think those were just torpedoes. But either way, it's going to be a problem. Libra, we talked about Libra a little bit in the government section. A lot of government entities from both the EU and the US government have come forward and said, I don't think so, bro. We control the currencies. This is our racket, and you don't get to be a part of it. And so Facebook's kind of been walking it back. But this is an interesting thing because when they were in front of the Senate, they were talking about, hey, we're going to have this group that's going to oversee all of the privacy concerns for Libra. And so don't worry about that. And the Senate was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. But there's a problem.
The Swiss group that's supposed to oversee privacy for Libra says it has not heard from Facebook at all. I guess it's like a Swiss bank. It's like, oh, the Swiss are the utmost for discretion.
Well, and they're very neutral.
Does that discretion extend to outright denying that a conversation ever took place?
I've never heard of this man. Please leave. No, I think maybe Facebook just assumed that they would be up for that.
You know, when you assume, you make an ass out of you and me.
Thanks, Mom.
And your millions of users, hundreds of millions of users. We don't have very much hardware news this week, but we do have this interesting hardware story. The thing that really... let's talk about this first, and then I want to point out the thing that really got me about this story.
The new 2019 MacBook Air features a slower SSD than the 2018 model. It's 35% slower, according to tests on the Blackmagic speed disk test. They say this is related to the $100 cost savings between the 2018 and 2019 model. But that's got to be like a difference in BOM cost of like $1.
This imore.com, I don't know who imore.com is. They made the statement. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Most people will take that over removing something like Touch ID or another feature that they use on a daily basis. Some of you are too young to know, but when the world figured out, I was like, hey, we should be running like 15,000 RPM hard drives in our desktops because it makes it seem so much faster. It's like the one thing you could do to make your computing experience seem like twice as fast. It's incredible. And now we're on these SSDs, and maybe some of you are spoiled, but you will notice that every time you use the computer. There will never be a time you don't notice when your hard drive is 35% slower. But literally everything you do. I mean, Touch ID, would you not trade Touch ID for a faster SSD?
You just want to see the rainbow icon more often.
I missed the beach ball.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that seems like a weird choice. And like you say, they're thinking in terms of Apple pricing, not OEM pricing. So
sacrifices had to be made for that $100. Did they? I don't think they did.
And speaking of Apple, the Apple game has always been the walled garden. And that's where they really shone, you know. Bring the zombies in, keep them there, and fleece them as hard as you can. And I think they've figured out, it's like, we're getting a little too far away from that. We need to get back into that mode. And they're going to start out with your precious podcasts.
Ars Technica says that Apple is planning to buy up original podcasts with exclusivity in mind. Apple is already they've already got original content in music and TV. Podcasts are next. I've been thinking about the sea of podcasts out there. Apple being a walled garden, they can pick some decent podcasts and curate them into stuff that people will listen to and pay for, and then other podcasts will go away because it's harder to get on the platform.
What kind of numbers do you think they're throwing at Joe Rogan right now?
Probably 6-7 figures easy.
I think he's got enough integrity not to do that. He's kind of an Apple shill, I think.
You might be all about it.
I think if they offered him 8 figures, he'd probably go for it.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I think he's making a lot of money right now.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. Now, they did say that maybe it won't be pure exclusivity. Oh, Tracker Store? What? Tracker Store?
Got a little pop-up. It's not good.
I don't even think Tracker Store should be running. What was I in the middle of saying? Oh, yeah. It might not be pure exclusivity. It might be like timed exclusivity.
Oh, yeah.
But podcasts sometimes have, like time-sensitive information. So, who knows?
Not this podcast.
Also on the hardware front is, and these, you see this over and over, but to me, it never stops being impressive.
Yeah.
And especially when you start thinking about what can be stored on such large storage.
1 terabyte. A 1 terabyte micro SD card is as insane as it sounds, but wait for it to get cheaper. Well, it's SanDisk Extreme. It's $400. It's like $400 or $500.
I think it's $500. $449.99.
Yeah, like $450. So it's kind of slow. It's not the fastest. It's probably good for a phone. It's probably not good for a digital camera or something like that. But yeah, it's 1 terabyte in a micro SD card.
Now, it's slow, but they will also sell you, I don't know if it comes with it. It should. But they'll sell you this little thing, and this speeds it up.
Oh, yeah, because it's a different kind of an interface.
Yeah. And so if...
Even with the speeded up interface, though, it's still kind of slow.
But they did also test it in a variety of devices, and they didn't really have a lot of compatibility issues. Like most current, past couple year devices are already future-proofed for these giant cards.
I think it's up to 2 terabytes right now.
Yeah, so...
Neat.
How butthurt are you if you buy a $500 SD card and lose it?
That's all they say. They're so small. Like, it would be so easy.
Oh, yeah. It's so tiny.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Pop that, and you got it in your pocket. It goes in the washing machine.
Of course, that suggests also that runaway inflation is upon us because $500 will soon be like not a lot of money. Maybe, I don't know.
That's all relative, isn't it? Last year there was some controversy at CES. There was an award winner that was then stripped of their award.
Stripped.
Oh,
and
the controversy goes.
Yeah. So this year they are making some adjustments, although it's like one step forward, two steps back.
CES will allow sex toys at next year's show, according to this article from The Verge. So the winner last year was in fact.
It was this.
Yeah.
I like how they in the glamour shot they got little droplets of water on it like fresh fruit. Like, why was that necessary?
It won an award, but
that's a female massager, we should point out,
and it was designed by a female-owned company, and blah blah.
And it's supposed to be really amazing.
But CES has had a history. It took them forever to get rid of booth babes. A lot of people have complained, and those kind of things. But actually, if you go back like 10 or 15 years, there was like an adult industry expo and CES, and those things happened at the same time. And for a long time, they were largely the same event. Now they happen at different times. But CES and this kind of thing have kind of a storied history that maybe the CES organizers are trying to get away from, while also trying to be like modern and sophisticated. I don't know.
Now, they point out that there has been a VR porn company that's been there every year. You have to go inside a little booth so other people don't have to witness your debauchery, but you could do it. And then there was another.
How awkward is that?
Yeah, really.
In a showroom with.
I remember how nasty the sweat on VR headsets
Yeah,
was.
like when we were playing Beat Saber,
Yeah.
like passing the headset was like.
And you got somebody else's like porn sweat on you. Nasty. There was another questionable adult thing. Now the women, you point out this was like a women's product by women, for women by women. They pointed out that all the ones that were allowed were male-oriented pornography, but the female-oriented sex toy was rejected. Anyway, this kind of thing is okay now. Booth babes are completely out. No more.
I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah. There was kind of a resurgence this year at Computex, which I was surprised. Like last year, the year before last was the least I'd seen, and then they started to come back a little bit year before last, and then they were back in force this past year.
I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I don't like looking at pretty girls, but it just seems so patronizing.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you really think about me that you think?
Well, and like, what does it say about your product that the only way you can get people over here is to have a hot chick peddling it? Like,
so yeah, it's a weird thing about the industry. But I remember they did that with F1 racing, and a lot of those women were like, "Hey, this was a really good job. You guys really screwed us here. We don't have any other talents." So you got to think about that, right? Like,
we have a similar story about that later.
What's the cost?
Anyway.
Yeah, and speaking of adult entertainment, and this is one of those things where I thought about cutting this because it's not new information, but when you frame old information in a way that directly impacts somebody, sometimes they'll take note of it. And I think this could have that effect.
Google and Facebook might be tracking your porn history, researchers warn. Incognito mode won't help either. This talks about how even in incognito mode, you still leave a lot of breadcrumbs, a digital footprint, if you will. And these companies do have an incentive to track you even though you're in incognito mode. Certainly the sites that are hosting the content have an incentive to track you in the same way.
And this is the Google Analytics and the Google Tags and the Facebook like buttons and stuff like that. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with porn, per se. This is on every website, essentially. And every website can track you outside of incognito. But again, it might actually get you to thinking next time you're on Pornhub, and you're like, wait a minute. Before I click on this really weird shit, maybe I should think about privacy.
And that's on CNET.
Or the morals your parents taught you.
Also, that's going to go into your marketing profile. And when the government assigns your social score, they're going to take that into account.
That was a plot point next Machina.
So we're going to give you -1 point because you're so into cougars. aberrant. Bulgaria, there's a name you don't hear much in the tech news. And now that they're in the tech news, it's not for good reasons.
Bulgaria's hacked database is now available on hacking forums. Half the database, to be exact. The half the hacker released to local reporters over the last weekend.
Now, this was a funny series of events. It was hubris, you might say. The news agency that reported the story showed in their B-roll the URL where it was stored. And they were like, nah, don't worry about it. There's a password on that. And so some guy was like, did they just show me the URL? And he downloaded it, and he couldn't crack it. But he was like, you know what? I'm just going to put this on a security forum. They'll crack it. They cracked it. And they all kept it while they cracked it. So now everybody has a version of it, and it's been cracked.
Great.
Good job.
Take note of this, Kazakhstan.
Yeah, that's sad. Sad. This one, not really shocking. Also, a possible cutting board here. I don't think this really surprises anybody.
No.
But
we've talked about this before.
Maybe you should be aware of it.
Bluetooth exploit can track and identify iOS and Microsoft mobile device users. Well, if you're using a Microsoft mobile device, it's time to get a new device anyway.
Just put it down.
This is the same. This is another variation of that same Bluetooth exploit that we reported on a couple of weeks ago, where you've got a lot of unique identifiers in the Bluetooth protocol. The protocol designers never thought that it would be weaponized this way. So because there's unique identifiers, if they can figure out who you are, they can put those unique identifiers with you and then track you.
So kind of the same thing they do with browsers. Like, even the resolution of your browser can be an identifying factor. And if they have enough of those, they can single you out without any need to have the actual Bluetooth keys. And it's not like they're going to get into your Bluetooth devices, just that they're going to be able to identify you when you pass by their sniffer or whatever. So probably marketing companies are going to start using that a lot more than criminals, I would think. The story, this is kind of news-ish. It's really more of an opinion story, although it is interesting at the sheer power that China has to be able to do this in real time.
This is a practical example of what we were talking about in yesterday's news with the government, how WeChat censors private conversations automatically in real time. So we talked about Tencent and how they help the government and do that kind of thing. So scroll down, there's a picture, and it's like, it used to be that they would share pictures of newspaper articles, and that would be a way around the censor because the AI can't. You got to click read more. They would, like, somebody would have something controversial they wanted to share with somebody, so they would take a picture of the article in like the foreign newspaper or whatever it was, and that would get by the censors. But now the AI can recognize stuff in images and see if the image looks similar to images that have been banned. So the image may be blocked immediately, or it may be blocked at a later date, or just marked for review. So you end up on a list.
Yeah, well, also MD5s every offending image. So when you post an image first, it goes through the MD5 database. Is there a match? If so, it's out. If there's not, quick OCR. Is there text on it? If there is, send it in for further investigation. If there's not, does it look like these other images? Let the AI look at it. If it does, I don't know. But this all happens in like 10 seconds. So, pretty amazing.
And they can deal with it after the fact. So, like, if you try to send it again, it's like, nope.
Yeah, once it goes into the list, then that first phase will catch it every single time. Also, with text, it's just trivial. Like, text goes, the images were the hard part. Text, no problem at all. Just catches everything that might be bad. And you'll send the message, it looks like it's sent. It's like that shadow stuff. Your recipient never gets it. It shows sent on your end. You never know it got filtered.
Yeah.
China number one at filtering.
I like how I like how PUBG now, it's like you don't die graphically. It's like, here, have my loot box. There's an actual animation of them, crawling around and handing a loot box.
You mean the Chinese version?
Yeah. As opposed to like exploding violently and end with viscera.
I couldn't remember. Did we already do this story?
We did. This is a new one though. So,
a new version of the same one.
Yeah, ZDNet has this article. Logitech wireless USB dongles are vulnerable to new hijacking flaws. So this is sort of the second time. Vulnerabilities found in Logitech's proprietary unifying USB dongle technology. If you are using a wireless keyboard, stop it.
Wouldn't that include us?
Not me.
We use one in the conference
We've got
room.
one right here.
Well, I don't type anything important into that keyboard.
I don't use one, and then we mentioned like immediately two versions we do use. Don't use one.
Yeah, the unifying receiver. It's going to need a firmware update. Still waiting on that. Thanks, Logitech. Where's my firmware?
Oh, I thought they announced they had one for the.
Oh, did they? I didn't think it was fixed. Maybe.
Maybe not. I don't know. Well, Chrome, when it comes to privacy, like the Venn diagram of Chrome and privacy is just two circles. But now maybe there'll be like a 1 pixel overlap for those two things.
Chrome 76 prevents New York Times and other news sites from detecting incognito mode. And Chrome 76 websites can no longer check the file system API to detect private mode. So Google has said, I think this was off the record, but whatever news out, I think it was ours or whoever the person from Google was talking to, because I read a couple different versions of this article, but the person from Google was like, no, incognito mode should be completely indistinguishable to the rest of the website from regular browsing mode, and we will go to whatever lengths are necessary to make it impossible to detect incognito mode. So that's encouraging. Those are fighting words, basically. And so that's encouraging to see from Google, but
surprising.
I would really, because Google can always do whatever they want. So Google doesn't care if the New York Times knows whether or not you're in private mode, because Google still knows. And Google's interests and the New York Times interests are not aligned financially here, so it doesn't matter.
But the paywall arms race has already gone so far beyond incognito mode.
It really.
So.
Google's supporting paywall. You can actually set flags now in your meta, in your HTML headers, to be like, Google, you have access to this, but this content is otherwise paywalled, and Google's okay with that. There's a slight SEO penalty for that, but it's very, very slight at this point.
I'm saying it's not. This feature isn't going to really help that much because, yeah. Maybe and besides, we've just learned on the porn sites, incognito mode doesn't even matter. They're not using. They're not detecting incognito mode. They're just using all of the Google and Facebook snippets.
And we can also demonstrate that Google is not always. Well, our next story. That's a bleed in for our next story. We have a perfect example from our history where we can prove that this is not actually true.
Yeah, this is just an outright lie, and anybody that's ever used YouTube knows it, because that's one of my favorite things about YouTube.
BBC News says that they've got YouTube quote, we don't take you down the rabbit hole, unquote. And so this is an executive from YouTube. And this is in reference to conspiracy theories on YouTube. That's like a thing that happens. People get sucked into that. And this guy's saying, no, we don't do that. In fact, we've gone to great lengths to try to prevent that. But anybody who's used YouTube know that that's not true.
Yeah, I was interested in MREs before YouTube.
So we can prove it. You guys remember the Barbie Dreamhouse episode of the Level 1 News?
Oh, yeah.
I made a comment about that, and then all of a sudden...
What was the title?
Yeah.
It was the title and the content.
But yeah,
all of a sudden everyone's recommended.
I'll get started on a gun review on YouTube, and before you know it, I'm watching a guy smelt his own copper.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, and it's one of the best things about YouTube. So I think the thing that they're worried about is the conspiracy theory stuff.
Yeah.
Because you can go to something that's really true, fractional reserve lending. And before you're done, it's Holocaust 2.0. And so there is that. So, but really, like with everything, it's up to the user. You got to exercise some common sense.
People would have been blown away by the internet in the olden days.
They would literally have burned people at the stake.
Every third website on GeoCities was crazy conspiracy nut.
Well, because that's in India, where in some of the more less developed places, they got WhatsApp.
Oh yeah,
and they were hanging people in a week. It's overwhelming, and
it really is.
But I think it's not a good excuse to not give people the ability to communicate. I don't know. It's a tough question, but I think censorship is the wrong thing. Of course, what Google is saying is, "Oh, we fixed it. It's not like that anymore."
It totally is. It continues to be that way.
What they did was make it more advertiser friendly and neutered discoverability for certain channels like this one. And the rabbit hole is still definitely there.
Patreon.com/level1. Tell your friends.
Or just tell your friends about our channel even. Please.
Yeah.
We have very little social media news this week, but this story, I think, is delightful.
One of the sub-headlines in this really made me laugh.
Because Instagram is also trying to make it not as toxic, not as miserable an experience, try to bring people back to it. But the step they took to do that has angered the quote-unquote influencers.
Instagram has gotten rid of it says, it's demotivating for me. Influencers and agencies react to Instagram hiding the likes count. So yeah, the like count is going away.
That's great.
So,
half of it's bots anyway. Like 90% of accounts are just covered in bots. Like
Jim Wolfe is this young lady that we saw there. 2.7 million followers, and she's saying that it really makes Instagram, less useful. This is only rolled out in Australia so far. I think they updated the story 6 more countries, but I don't know what those countries are.
Yeah.
But it's coming everywhere. Instagram seems happy with how it's going. Oh, that's a good-looking dog.
It is a good-looking dog. It totally outshines her in that photo.
But this photo's been touched up a lot.
Oh yeah.
But still.
You can always, that's the thing. That's the Facetune app that a lot of these Instagrammers use. That it blurs your skin out.
Well, I don't know if the dog would have benefited from that.
It might have been.
But he looks so these colors are so, pristine. Solid white, and
this could be a professional photographer.
He's probably kind of muddy in the real world, a little dirty. Yeah. Still a good looking dog.
They bleached him right before they took the photo.
Just like
poor
put
dog.
a Mister bottle of bleach, just blasting it in his face.
His eyes used to be a bright color, but they got blinded.
Anyway, here's an example of Jim Wolfe and no light. Well, actually, wait, this does show the light count.
It does.
Oh, because it's not in our country yet.
Well, yeah, and it's an embedded post, but yeah.
So, we'll see. I don't know.
One of the headlines are, I think it's going to be really hard to start being an influencer.
Yeah, she thinks there's going to be a barrier to entry now.
Pro tip, it's actually hard anyway, because no one cares about what you ate.
The comment section was great on this story.
Yes.
Because people, the average Joe hates influencers. And every comment is like, get a job.
My favorite comment was, it's like the kids in China want to be astronauts and the kids in America want to be influencers.
Yeah,
it's like, oh no.
I mean, America's biggest export is its culture, I guess, so.
That's not sustainable.
No, not at all.
So, we were going to do this last week. But
Feeling like we're in a glass house here.
Yeah.
We forgot.
Yeah.
Forgot to do this last week. This is a design story, so I'll throw this to Krista.
Behold, the most intentionally poorly designed website ever created. Allegedly. I've seen worse. But
I didn't see this last week, and I got to play with that this week. And there's stuff in here that we have actually been asked to build.
Yes, I know. I think this is genuinely terrible, and it's very frustrating to use. It's basically a form, and you just have to fill out elements in a form, which you would think, how can you possibly screw that up? And the answer is
I can remember several of these things where we were like, this is not a good idea to build it like this. And they're like, no, my vision.
Go back to the last one. So in this version, it has all this crap clicked, and it's like, I only need you to click 3 of these things. So then you have to unclick all of them. I got to the point of the select. No, it wasn't select a country. That was also annoying. Because they're in black and white too. Yes, it was this one. This is the point in the form that I couldn't get past. Was select all the images of a bow. And then there's pictures of an archery bow.
A bow, yeah.
And a hair bow. There's a constant pop-up that comes up too that's just so frustrating.
Well, that's actual websites too.
I know, and I hate it.
Oh, this would have been a good lead-in for the nonsense section, but you're going to have to wait until Friday for that.
That's right.
So we'll see you Friday.
Bye.